Athens, welcome to the Classic City Business Podcast. Our mission, to connect our community to the local business owner. If you love Athens and love supporting the people behind our businesses, then you're in the right place. We get to know the people behind the sign. Some are legends, others are on their way. You're listening to the Classic City Business Podcast with your friend, your host, all-around great guy, and owner of Generations Commercial Cleaning, John Glutt. So get ready, buckle up, hang on, here we go.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Classic City Business Podcast. I am your host, John G., and today we're connecting our community to the people behind the sign at Last Resort, and I'm here with Melissa Clegg and Tom Call. Many of you guys might recognize that name. He was on the show with us before with a whole different thing, but I'm so excited to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
Today. Guys, I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourselves, and Melissa, I'm going to kind of let you take the lead once we've done that and just talk about Last Resort. Obviously, you've been here for a while. What made you start in the beginning? And then where are you gone? What's happened over the last 30 years?
30 years, wow. Yes. Long time.
So yeah, Tom, go ahead and introduce yourself again, and then we'll jump over here to Melissa.
All right, that's great. I'm Tom Call. I live in Valdosta, Georgia. We have a place here in Athens. We spend a good bit of time here. Have another property management business. So real estate is my background, and recently have diversified, so to speak, and been able to join forces with Melissa, thankfully. And, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Melissa, the heart of the matter. Why are we here? Let's find out about Last Resort. Tell us where it all started.
Yeah, hi, I'm Melissa Clegg, and I was a graduate here at the University of Georgia. I've been in Athens since 1976. My father was a professor here. Graduated from the university at Terry's School of Business and Marketing. And literally before I graduated, I had worked in the food industry since high school and had this great opportunity to open up a little cafe in Five Points called Lumpkin Cafe. And literally signed the lease, I think, the week before I graduated.
Oh, wow.
Which was pretty awesome. And did that for a couple of years, and then ended up kind of moving on to some other things, and one of which was going to Atlanta and working through a passion of mine at the time, which was flying, and ended up flight instructing at Peachtree DeKalb Airport for a couple of years, thinking that the aviation was going to be my future. And after doing lots of right seat flying for lots of different corporations and being stuck in lots of airports across the country, I sort of realized that maybe that wasn't the passion for me. And so I ended up moving back to Athens from Atlanta, and I worked for Charter One's Hospital, which was not the highest point in my life, but it gave me this great opportunity to really kind of dig deep and think about what my passions really were. And I really had loved the experience of opening Lumpkin Cafe and the excitement of it and the creativity and the food aspect of it. And so I started kind of manifesting this idea that really I wanted to, in my mind, get back into the food business. But I didn't know exactly how to make that happen. And I'm truly a believer that if you can envision something that you want in your life, it will manifest itself. You don't know exactly maybe how, but it will. And as I've found multiple times in my life, I had this crazy thing happen, and some friends called me and they said, look, the building that used to be Last Resort, the club, has come up for sale, and we would like to invest in it, and we're looking for somebody who would lead the charge in opening a restaurant. And I was like, unbelievable. It's iconic space. My mother actually played here. She was a musician. She's a guitar player, and so I, been to numerous shows at Last Resort in high school, and I was just totally overwhelmed by the opportunity to come in here and work with some, great partners and get this off the ground. And the music club had closed for a number of years, and it was a camera shop here. And so, the history of the club had been interrupted for, I don't know, maybe 8 years until we came in, and we just thought that with this, great heart and iconic, legend of what this club was, and then my kind of personal association with it and being an Athens almost native, that it would be really fantastic to kind of rebirth that idea of taking the name over. The grill right now is where the most recent stage was. So we sort of, when we worked with our architect, we really tried to emulate as we could the experience. So when people came in here, they could make some relationships to the space as it was when they were here, maybe listening to their favorite show. And so really that's sort of how the Last Resort in a way came to fruition. And I don't mean to pass the mic, but crazy enough, I have been here for 30 years. It's been an amazing 30 years. But I, again, have been going through kind of a personal transition, and have just in the last maybe 6 months or a year, I've been kind of manifesting again another change where I really felt like we needed another partner, a person to continue to work with me to continue reinvigorating what has been started here. And again, a perfect example of manifest destiny is I'm thinking this, and I've come to terms with I get this phone call out of the blue from Tom Call, and here we are sitting here at this table together today.
That story sounds so familiar.
Yeah, it does.
It's like, I can't wait to read your book. That is really cool. I was sitting here, and there were so many things that were popping through my mind as you were telling your story. That, to me, guys, that's Athens, right? This is, you have your journey. Everybody's on their own path, and this place, I didn't know the history. I was really curious about it, but my gosh, man, your mom used to play here.
Yeah.
It might be too personal, but I mean, she's still around?
Yes, she is. Still in Athens.
So I'm sure she's very proud of this.
Yep.
And this, I was looking around. You were talking about trying to incorporate the past, with the present. And I'm got my neck turned here, guys. The stage or the grill is behind us. Those of you that have been here, I mean, you know all this. As far as the layout, but this is just it's on the corner right here at Clayton. It's part of the whole, we talked about the downtown experience. I love that you can come downtown. You could probably come down here every weekend for 6 months and do something different, right?
Absolutely.
So this is one of those things that I've been curious about. And then when you told me what was going on, Tom, I was like, oh yeah, I need to check out that story. And my point of saying all that is, every time I do something like this, it just feels like it's a whole lot richer than I thought. I think I know, but I don't know. So what was your, during that period of time, obviously that's a lot of stuff that's happened, a lot of life. Is there a significant, really impactful thing that you just super proud of with the business itself? As far as from a standpoint of just a pride point for you, is that a fair question? Did I lay
Yes,
one on you?
well, I mean, it's really, it's my legacy, honestly. 30 years is a long time. It's been pretty much my, entire life. I mean, other than raising these two amazing children, daughters, it's been the center of my life since I was 26. So I met my husband here. We always say if these walls could talk, because they would have so many stories to tell, and it just becomes kind of part of the magic of what we try to create here is this sense of history, and I think Tom could probably really talk to this, and that is that, after a period of time, a place like Last Resort and a number of other, businesses in our community, they're greater than that sum of that one experience. It's that memory that you have when you sit at table 17 and you remember that you had something significant that happened in your family at that, or to you and your spouse or whatever, that all these significant memories that kind of all get magically concocted into this feeling that you have when you walk in the door. And I still feel that. When we're clicking on a really good night, it's busy and the lights are good, and see all that beautiful food coming off the grill and the hard work of all of the people that have contributed to us getting here to 30 years. It's really magical. And I know Tom feels the magic. He wouldn't be sitting here if he didn't. It's just...
That's right. And so it's a good segue for me to put my perspective on. So I believe the resort opened in May of 1992.
Yes. August, but yes.
August of 1992. And I was a senior. And August began my final 5th football season at UGA. I was graduating in December. And, Athens was not always a foodie town, so to speak, like it is now.
It is now, for sure.
Lots of creativity, and it's a whole new industry, really. A fancy meal back then was, maybe Red Lobster or
a chain.
There were other the Lighthouse and Five Points. You had these special places, but the last resort is where I had my graduation gathering with my family because it was new, it was creative, it was different, it was local, and so it had all that. So that's where my history began with Last Resort that I remember. I probably ate here before that, obviously, to check it out or whatever. But and so 30 years on, my kids have been raised in here. When we've come to Athens, it was always. We own property downtown, residential property, and when we'd stay here, we were always coming to the Last Resort. We'd walk down and so we were here for the 30th celebration as guests, just as came to eat and have a piece of cheesecake and we're sitting in here, and I was just kind of sentimentally struck by the moment. I was with my wife and my family, and it literally was just an epiphany, an otherworldly thought of, I wonder what the next 30 years of this place looks like. And so I inquired.
So that's how it wasn't like you heard, hey, they're,
No.
And you're just having thoughts of this,
yes.
right? You haven't really, wow, man.
I didn't know Melissa. I knew her husband. I didn't know I knew him, but we have a good, Todd and I have a great past. And so
Jeez.
she agreed to take my phone call, and here we are. I mean, she and I bonded very well immediately. She's a person of great integrity and character and visionary, Athens icon, all this stuff, which I was sort of awestruck by. But really, when you start peeling the layers back of this business, and I wasn't looking for a restaurant at all. I'm a real estate guy, real estate businesses, and that's my background.
It was a moment.
It was a
at
moment
the table.
Yeah,
In this
and there are
restaurant.
lots of great restaurants in this town, but I can tell you, if I would never even pursue. If somebody said, "Hey, this one," I wouldn't be interested. It's this one.
So
And
it's
for all the
meant
reasons that she
to be.
mentioned, plus all the people that work here, all the people that enjoy this place and create the memories here, and the magic from my own personal experience on this side of the table led to that moment. Being treated so well from the kitchen staff to the server to the bartender. Everybody works in concert to provide you with the best experience they can, and it's a simple mission, but it's hard to pull off, and they do it well. And so that's how we had a couple months of getting to know each other and making sure it was the right fit. It wasn't a sudden decision by either of us to join forces, and lots of due diligence and lots of like I said, getting to know each other. We have a lot of similarities. We're both family focused. We're both pilots. Her husband and I were fraternity brothers.
Tom, you were holding back on us on this whole pilot thing. I didn't know that. You didn't mention that last time we talked.
You
So you're both
didn't
pilots.
ask me if I was a pilot.
That's true. I did not ask that question. You're right.
So yeah, I mean, we just had this organic development of personal connection and then professional connection, and so I'm honored, and I've said this to anybody that listens, because when the news got out that I was, buying in with Melissa, everybody decides to tell you their personal story about the last. It's been overwhelming, but that was the same reason I reached out.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about this one night at Last Resort. It was my favorite, whatever. Everybody has a sense of, obligation to share their story, and I love hearing that. And it's been, I've tried to pass that along to all the staff here. That people really just appreciate this place.
So we need to get into the next segment. But before I do, when you were talking about, the 30 years and the kitchen, you've mentioned that several times about the food coming out. And maybe this might be another one of those unfair questions I'm just throwing on you. But you just talked about, Tom, you talked about the people in the kitchen and how important, all these stories are that people experience over time, which brings me to culture. Culture is a hard thing to develop and to maintain. Chick-fil-A is always brought up when they talk about their culture and the experience that you have when you go into a Chick-fil-A. It's very consistent. I say that to ask you, do you have any wisdom to share with us about how do you do that? How do you, because so many people I've heard say, particularly with restaurants, the restaurant, obviously personality and experience is a big part of it, but the kitchen can make or break you, right?
Right.
So do you have anything that you could drop on us in terms of like how you develop that and keep that consistent?
Well, I think that from the moment that this idea was conceived, it was really a group of friends that came together. I mean, I reached out to people that I'd known. It just had this very organic beginning, and we were a family, and we were working together to make this exciting new thing happen and to get this launched, and it's just kind of continued with this, with us really being focused in on knowing that, on making sure that we really value the family, the value ourselves as a family, and take care of each other. And if I look back right now into the kitchen, I can see Jennifer, who's been with us for 24 years, Rob, who's been with us for, our kitchen staff, we were here for 30 years. I think our longest, we've got 2 people I can think of right now just in that back kitchen that both started when they were in their early 20s, and now they're in their mid 40s. So we just have this have been able to foster and maintain this this environment where and this longevity, and that is the key.
That's not normal, right?
Oh, absolutely.
In the restaurant business,
I've been here for 30 years, so
Yeah,
we've got a server
the manager.
We've got a server who's been here, who I hired the week after we opened, who's still here, Wayne. Kim's been here. I don't want to talk out of turn, but I would say 17 years is the average manager's.
that to me is probably the most awesome thing that you said, and an Athens icon. Truly, if you've created a culture environment where people want to be here, you're doing something right. So let me just say to you, congratulations. That's an awesome thing to be able to claim. And I know you're not like that. She's probably one of the most humble people that I've talked to, Tom. She's like, oh no, I'm not this. I'm like, but take a moment and just absorb that, because that is critical, I think, to the culture that we've built here in Athens. I say we. You see how I've inserted myself already? I love this. I love this town. I love the story. So this has really been an honor and a pleasure. But let's move on to the next segment. And this is to get to know you. And we'll shorten this up a little bit. So we went a little bit long on this last one. But the pilot story would have been fantastic. But is there anything about yourself, and maybe even some of the people that have been here with you the entire time, might be surprised to learn? Like a little thing about Melissa that, oh, you did what now?
Well,
You were involved in starting other restaurants too.
yes,
that
I've started multiple restaurants in Athens, 5 and 10, East West Bistro years ago. Me and Madonna, for those people who remember that stage, allergy provisions. But I think that's pretty well known. I guess, outside maybe experiences, I probably would say that most people wouldn't realize that I'm kind of an introvert at heart. That's probably the most honest thing I can say. That when you're in this business and you're having to be very present and be that's
Out in front.
not, and that's not really a natural thing for me. I'm pretty private, and I'm pretty much, you know, quiet and introverted. And when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh no, you're not. That's not what I see." But really, I am. So I would say that's probably would be something that people would be surprised to hear me say.
My wife would describe herself that way. And I said the same thing to her, like, as we were dating, like, really? Like, I don't see that. That's so crazy. But then, you know, as you get to know somebody, his traits certainly are visible. That's interesting. Do you have a passion in terms of not the restaurant, but a place where, I don't know, you give back to the community, or you have a heart for, or something that you pay attention to, whether it's time, energy, or is it all wrapped up in what you're doing here? And this is a big thing. I'm assuming that this is very time consuming, which is probably part of the reason why you wanted to bring Tom to be a part of it.
You know, I think that when we, you know, as a business, we're always focused on trying to give back to the community, and we do that in you know, many different ways. And we, you know, we realize that we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the support of the community, and so we're really cognizant about trying to give that back. But I would, and I've been very involved in, you know, some organizations, Slow Food, for example, or different organizations where we work with young people, and specifically from a culinary perspective, whether it's teaching, working with programs where we create gardens and educate, you know, young people about healthy eating, or work with high school students, and we provided some scholarship, you know, provided culinary scholarships through the resort. But really, at the end of the day, I would say that, you know, hundreds, if not thousands, of young people have come through our doors and worked for us over the years, and we just hope that by nurturing them and bringing them into our family and helping them on their personal journeys, that they each are going out into our community and really making a difference. We have, for example, this amazing young kid named Moses who came to work for us when he was 18. He worked for us for 4 years. He's 22, went to the culinary school here in Athens. He's on his last quarter, and he's doing a sabbatical where he is working in a restaurant in Florence, Italy. And I imagine in 6 months we'll hear that he's in England, in London, or some other, you know. So I think really at the end of the day, our legacy are these young people, and these people we've been able to mentor. I mean, we've had so many people that have left us. I mean, Hugh Atchison, 5 and 10, Hugh came to Athens. I can remember interviewing him, and he ended up working for us here. Cupper and Alicia both worked here. We had Mama's Boy, Chuck, who's got Pulaski Street Barbecue. Marty worked for me at Pumpkin Cafe. Marty's at Midday, and unfortunately Marty's no longer with us. But part of our legacy and part of what I think we've been able to contribute.
So one of the things that we talk about, and sometimes, which is really bad for a podcast host, I have a hard time articulating my thought in terms of exactly how I want to put it. And I use this term, the heart of Athens. And what you just described was it. That's why I asked that question, because I've had people on who've talked about how they invest in the people that they have working for them, because they realize that most of the time, particularly like in the restaurant business, you know, it's a short-term thing. So you have people in your life for a certain amount of time, and to invest in them, to make them the best people that they can be. And there's a lot of different ways to invest, right? So I love that. I love the way you're talking about the culinary scholarships. And it makes sense coming out of a restaurant, right? That's what we mean when we talk about the heart of Athens. I love that representation. I think that is picture perfect. And guys, I hope I don't sound too repetitive when I say this. And I'm saying this to the audience. This is an example of a story in Athens. We're full of people, organizations, leaders that are like that. And I really hope you grasp how cool it is and how honored we should be to live in Athens. This is just, I love these stories. So thank you for sharing that. Tom, I know we've been here before. Like give us a little snippet, something that maybe I don't know, maybe your new staff here. And Melissa might not know about Tom Call, the pilot, who's something that I certainly didn't expect. We've already covered that. Is there anything like that? Like, hey man, I used to do.
I do a lot of things.
Yeah,
but,
you do.
But my nature is hospitable, and I try not to meet a stranger. I try to be humble in that and meet people, and it fit, my personal mission fit perfectly in here, and it's the same mission: is to serve others before yourself, and whether that's the 20-year employee in the kitchen, or it's the vendor that's coming in to bring you fresh produce, or it's the server, or it's somebody who comes in and need, and this is a perfect canvas for that. I mean, in the hospitality industry in general is about making somebody feel good or important, or create a special memory. And by nature, I'm not patting myself on the back, but as I've gone through this growing into this situation, I've had to kind of really focus on those things and bring them to the forefront. And it's been a learning process, which I've still got a long way to go.
It's an awareness of it, right? It's an intentionality.
Sure,
right?
sure.
I love that. So let's jump into the next segment. This is My Athens. So we have to exclude Last Resort because that's an obvious one, right? But what's one of your favorite things about living in Athens? Been here for a long time. Melissa?
There's so many wonderful things about living in Athens. It's hard to really
fair?
articulate that. It's not a fair question.
Bad host.
But, obviously, the legacy of our great music scene, just the downtown, it's just such a beautiful part of the country. The Piedmont, I mean, I love just like riding through outside of Athens, and just the countryside is just so beautiful, and the people, of course, especially when you've been here, and you don't even have to have been here for very long. It's just so easy. It's just we're the South. People are humble, and we've got this great thing going for us where we have the Southern hospitality, and it's easy to meet people, and so it's hard to know a stranger here, and just
that.
walking through town and seeing familiar faces, and it's just really a great feeling. It just really makes you feel like you have a place.
Well, you, sir.
I agree, and to sort of piggyback on that, it really is the culture, which is the sum of all the individual parts, right? And the UGA, all that means, the athletics, the academics, just the experiences there, the music, the food, and all of that is defined individually by people that produce those things or do those things, and so it's sort of a melting pot, and it's just there's something about the city of Athens that my parents. So I have the family connection here as well. I do live in Valdosta, but I've got strong roots here, family wise, and so all that's a part of it for me too.
So I always get this twisted, but I've heard several people say that Athens is the smallest big city you'll ever live in. Does that make sense, in the sense that you were talking about downtown and all the different restaurants, and it has become a foodie town, right? But there's this music scene, and it's historical. I mean, it goes back, right? I think of T. Graham Brown. I've heard a story about him playing baseball. He was playing, I think it was the Holiday Inn, and he was doing these gigs, he was making money or whatever. And so the funny thing was, when you come to play sports in college, you're coming out of high school, where you were it, man. You were the all-star. Every one of these guys were the man. And they come in and, you're sitting on the bench. So T. Graham Brown tells a story where he goes in to talk to the coach, and he's like, hey, look, I'm getting these opportunities to get paid to play this gig. And, I'm not really getting a lot of playing time. And he's thinking, he tells a story he's thinking he's going to put some pressure on the coach, and man, I got to get this kid in. And his coach puts his hand on his shoulder and he says, son, I think you should follow your dreams. If music's what you want to do. And so the rest is history. Obviously, he's got
That's funny.
all the success in music. But I love that story. But there's all this history, this really cool history of music. And you can literally, where we're sitting right now on Clegg Street, you can walk 10 or 15 minutes in 2-3 different directions and have a whole nother experience. Whether that be, what is it, the Bottled Works, right?
Yep.
You got downtown, which, it's one thing during the day, it's another thing at night. There's these two different identities that you can experience and have fun. You just talked about just what's a driving distance around us in the beautiful country we live in. There's so many great things about living in Athens. So this is my Athens to me. What's something great on the menu? What's your favorite? What's your favorite
Well,
menu
we've had some items that have been with us from the get-go that have become iconic. The praline chicken, and salmon and grits has been with us since we've founded, and but we serve really good food. Really, we try to be really creative. We want to make people feel like when they walk in the door, they're walking into our personal space, our personal home, and we're very dedicated to what we do.
I think you both did a great job of describing, and I keep calling it culture, but the experience that you have when you come in here. I loved your story, Tom, about when you graduated, and there's so many stories like that people are telling you about just because they heard you, became a partner.
Sure.
So I think this is my own. I'm going to ask myself that question. It's not just great food. It is good people, but it's a great experience. It's a place to make memories, and you can experience all that. And it's Athens, man. You got to try everything once, right?
I feel like this is quintessential Athens right here for sure.
Oh, it represents it so well. And not just because it's a great place, it's great food, but the history behind it. I love the fact you talked about your mom playing here, 3 businesses back. That's just so cool to me. Melissa, I did not tell you this, but we have a special way of signing off on the show. And because you're a dog, you're going to pick up on this real quick. Tom, do you remember?
I can't remember.
You will. Just follow my lead. Athens, until next time. Go Dawgs! Sick 'em!
I've forgotten about that part.
Okay, guys, we did it. We made it to the end of the show. Now that you've heard at least one episode, can you do me a favor? If you know someone you would like to hear on a future episode, you can contact us or have them contact us at podcastjohng@gmail.com, or just message us on our social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Facebook. Just search the Classic City Business Podcast. You'll find us. One more thing. Please like, rate, review, and share. All of this really helps a lot. We really do want to connect our community to the local business owner. We believe this is a great platform to do just that. And thank you for taking this ride with us as we get to know the people behind the sign. It's going to be a lot of fun. In Athens, until next time, I'm John G. and go Dawgs.